Welcome, folks, to the Leadership Hour. This is Steve Adubato on AM 970, The Answer, and also our podcast on the Leadership Hour. I'm here with my colleague and longtime friend. I hope she's still my friend, Mary Gamba.
Always your friend. Hi, Steve.
Are we actually just going to be lifelong friends?
I think so. After 18, 19 years, I think that has to happen, right?
So even if we're not going to work together X number of years from now, we will still...
Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Listen, this Leadership Hour, before we bring on our good friend Marge Perry to talk about leadership and management and just being the extraordinary entrepreneur she is. Mary, real quick, tell folks how they can hook up with us.
Yeah, absolutely. A variety of ways, Steve. So first and foremost, stand-deliver.com is our website. We have tons of resources up there. You can get information on your books, free columns on topics such as leadership, communication. You can also follow Steve on Facebook. That's Steve Adubato, PhD. That's Adubato. And then also on Twitter, Steve Adubato. And then they can subscribe as listeners to Apple iTunes and Google Play to our podcast at those two locations. So they can check out past podcasts as well.
Great stuff. Let's get right into it. We are honored. We are pleased to be joined by our good friend, Marjorie Perry, who is President and Chief Executive Officer, I can say this, of MZM Construction and Management. Marge Perry is on the line. Marge, how you doing, my friend?
Good afternoon. How are you, Steve? Mary, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
We should also let folks know that Marge is a member of the Board of Trustees of the production company producing the Leadership Hour. That is the Caucus Educational Corporation. She's been a long time and very valued trustee. Marge, let me just jump right into this. For those who do not understand or know what MZM Construction and Management is, please let everyone know.
Well, we primarily focus on the engineering side for building hotels, dormitories, hospitals, and structural projects like bridges. We work more on the construction management side. This is where we've expanded to, so that's really great for us. So this way we can get a chance to spread our knowledge all over the country at this point. So that's primarily what we do with MZM Construction and Management.
So, the connection between leadership and being an entrepreneur, and Marge is the quintessential entrepreneur. She is, Marge, let me say this as directly and diplomatically as possible. You are a woman and a female entrepreneur leader in a largely male-dominated world?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And is it also fair to say, young lady, that you are one of the few minority women, minorities in a field dominated by folks who happen to be middle-aged white guys like me?
Yes, primarily I am one of the very few in the country.
That
have been able to rise to this level of heavy commercial construction. Absolutely.
Well, the reason I'm going there is this. What do you think it has taken for you? And do you think it's any different than anybody else who might be in the field that you were in to be the kind of successful leader, entrepreneur that you have been because you happen to be a woman and an African-American woman? Do you think it's any different, any more challenging? And if so, lay it out for us.
I think, the challenge which I didn't see going in, and sometimes it's better to just go in a novice if you don't have a clue. I don't think I understood that minorities, may you be male or female, or even wanted at this next level of construction. Oh, if you want to flip a house here or there, that's fine, that's okay. But once you start going into this next sector, there's a whole fraternity of nepotism that excludes minorities. So they're either worker bees at the labor level, or they are not doing anything at the management or securing the construction projects, like say $1 million and above. So I just did not have a clue that was an issue. Now, here's the naivete, whichever way you want to look at it. I'm saying, well, why can't I do what they do? Mm. And that's what I led with, not understanding that there would be a lot of failure, disappointments, undercutting, backstabbing.
I'm sorry, are you talking about the media business or your business?
Taking decaf. I had no clue how to navigate those waters as they were starting to come in. There were tsunamis at times.
Right.
So, yes, it is definitely different. You have to go in with no judgment at all on how it's supposed to go. I think most people forget that leadership becomes an internal thing. If you're looking for outer validation, it wasn't going to come from this group of individuals.
Whoa. Marge, what do you mean? Marge, back up. What do you mean leadership comes from within? I don't understand what that means.
In other words, most people, I think, when they think they're leading, and I say that, leading, they think that if somebody validates them, they're leading. I say no, leadership comes from within. You have to absolutely know the value system that you're working off of without anyone outside of you being able to tell you that you're leading. And leading is a very fluid word, as you know. You've been teaching it for a long time, as well as down at the universities all over the country.
By the way, Marge hooked us up a few years back. She has a strong connection to NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, where Marge helped me facilitate a teaching faculty role there, and with our great friend Dr. Joel Bloom, also on our board. But go back to what you're saying. Are you saying believing yourself that you are a leader, Marjorie, before anybody else tells you you are?
Oh, absolutely. You have to know. You have to know that you can lead. Now, here's the other piece. Let me just add that on. No one even knows that they can't lead until they fail and find out that they're not a leader. How about that?
And even those that can also fail.
What do you mean?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, you think you're leading, blah, 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 you're this, you're that, you're doing all this dancing, and then all of a sudden you find out, well, you weren't really leading at all because there's so many moving parts to being a leader. Now, the best thing you can learn to do out of each failure or disappointment or setback is become a deep listener and really get comfortable with not taking it personally so you can learn for each step, which will take you to the greater level of leadership. I don't think there's any end to becoming a leader.
Whoa.
I think
what do you mean? What do you mean there's no end? Don't you? Where's the finish? Where's the goal line, Marge Perry?
Listen, there's no goal. There's no goal. There's no goal.
Isn't it winning?
Nope.
What?
No.
You win a big contract, which we wish every week for you and your colleagues at MZM Construction and Management.
Thank you, and you tee it up like you've never won one before.
What? Can't I celebrate in the end zone as a leader?
5 minutes, that's right. So remember the playoffs.
5 whole minutes.
I can't spike the ball for too long.
5 minutes. Come on, Mary, you know that. Steve, you know that.
It's all true.
Sunday, the next game is coming next week.
Wow.
Yeah.
And if you get stuck on that win, then you could possibly lose everything the following week.
You sit there and go, look at us.
Yeah, we're
look
awesome.
at me. I'm a winner. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, so hold on, Marge. By the way, Marjorie Perry, President and Chief Executive Officer of MZM Construction and Management. Here's the question. As you describe this, and by the way, it's always fascinating. Mary and I think sometimes we think, oh, we've kind of covered the leadership thing. And then you talk to Marge and you realize we haven't scratched the surface. So here's my thing. What's the difference between Marge Perry, Steve Adubato, Leadership Hour with Mary Gamba, Brian Brodeur in the studio on AM 970. So what's the difference, Marge, between always looking to learn and get better, never being, quote, satisfied, and being some crazy perfectionist who can never be happy as a leader?
One is insecure. And the other one's always hungry.
Go ahead, Mary. I'm looking at Mary's face here in the studio. Go ahead, Mary.
Where do you fit in, Steve? I think
hold on.
I'm just saying.
Worry about yourself, okay?
I'm just saying. I love what you just said, Marge. I believe you. I agree with you. But there's definitely, it is a spectrum, and I truly believe that it doesn't have to be either or. I think
it doesn't have to be either or, but it's a combination of.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and at any given time, you can have that same manager who could at one point be so driven because of insecurities, and then at the other time being so driven just because they want to be successful and do what's best for the organization.
And never satisfied. Go ahead, Marge.
And never satisfied, because here's the tipping point, as they would say. Is that if you decide that, and I think I'm successful, I don't have any doubt about that in my mind. It's the day that I buy the success as final. Mm-hmm. That same leader that helped build the organization can now kill the organization because I'm right, you're wrong. that's why there's no ending to evolving in the leadership role. So I can't wake up any given day after 25 years of doing this and say, hey, well, I'm a minority woman. I've done this, I've done that, and I'm all of that. But guess what? There's Susie Q coming out of engineering school right behind me, okay, who has a better idea, all right? She's not burdened with a lot of the pressures of what can burn you out. So the minute that I lose focus on hearing from her, I have now lost my leadership leverage.
Oh, wow. I have a question for Marjorie.
Yes, Mary Gamba on the Leadership Hour.
And I would love to hear.
By the way, Marge, you can tell she's taking over the show, but that's okay.
I know. It's all good. But I do have a question because Steve and I have talked about this for a very long time. And when you are that leader and when you are so successful, when do you decide that you're done? When do you decide on that?
Why are you looking at me?
Steve and we have gone back and forth about our visions for retirement and succession planning because that is a huge part of leadership. So I'm just curious, Marge, you obviously have built up this empire, if you will, this top of your game. When do you either A, say that I'm done, so it's your choice, versus say, hey, I'm going to do this until,
until someone says, someone pushes me out. So Marge, you're at the top of your game, but neither one of us are kids, let's just say. Okay, we're in our prime, but is part of leadership, this is so weird, knowing when to get off the stage?
Yeah, absolutely. My succession plan, we're finalizing it as we speak.
What?
Because here's the other thing about leadership. There is nothing like a young mind at 30 that you've groomed to take it to the next level.
Marge, I don't want anybody taking my candy store.
Well, you know what? And then, therefore, the business can, and the bell curve can flatten out at the top.
Yep.
And so it's falling off the cliff.
Okay.
So for me to ever buy that I can do this until I decide to make my transition off this planet, who am I deluding?
Wow.
First of all, you can't even climb the stairs when you go to the job site. I'm like, oh my God.
Luckily,
Marge is recovering right now from
there's no elevator? What are you talking about?
Marge is recovering from a minor little procedure right now, and she's going to be stronger than ever. Talking about walking up the stairs. But Marge, in all seriousness, I'm curious about this. For those of us, and by the way, more importantly for everyone listening right now, say you're 50 to 60, you're in that range, whatever, maybe a little bit older, and you actually believe, as I do, and I know you do, that we are more experienced, we're tougher because we've been knocked down and gotten back up enough times, and have more energy, passion, and want to innovate than ever before. Here's my question. Why is it that we have to be I understand what you're saying about walking up the stairs and whatever else, but the question is, why do we have a responsibility to develop somebody else to take our job?
We have the responsibility to share the wisdom.
To teach and coach? Okay, fine. But let's just take your point of view. By the way, I'm playing devil's advocate. I know I ain't going to be here forever, but go ahead.
Right, but why not? I mean, because let's just say health issues come up in my 70s.
Go ahead.
And I had no plan in place for succession. So it's either going to terminate on its own, or I'm going to help make it a smooth transition.
Is that a leadership failure is it a leadership failure if you don't plan for whatever happens down the road?
Yes, I think it's a leadership failure. To me.
Wow.
That's my point of view, because I think leadership is always thinking about what's next. I think leadership planning is always about the next 2 years, 3 years, and 5 years. I think leadership planning should be, hey, I want to be more on the philanthropic side. There is no major leader that I've ever studied or looked at, or even conversations we had over time, who didn't sell their business so he could go to another level. Even if it's from an equity point of view or equity position or something where people can absolutely come in. I want to be the tacit knowledge. I don't want to be the person that's putting in the 40, 60, 80 hour a day
So
10 years
interesting.
from now. I'm just not even interested in doing that. And therefore, I'm going to lose interest. I'm going to start to decline a little bit because I can't do that anymore because the passion can't stay that high. And if you think about it, even if you're a great football player or a great basketball player, you can't hit 600 shots a week forever.
And developing other people, coaching others, helping others reach their potential is part of the joy of it. In all seriousness, people like Bill Gates. I think about Bill Gates made so much money at a young age, and the whole Microsoft thing. And then he was like, you know what? I'm going to create this foundation, the Gates Foundation, right? But he's not the day-to-day person leading that company, right? But he's not totally off he's not off every stage. He's off that day-to-day treadmill thing. Is there a difference? Mary's just staring at me. Trust me, Mary, I don't have Bill Gates' money, so stop looking at me like that.
You and Steve can and chime in. Just think about it. Now, I can be a Bill Gates if I don't have to be on a treadmill every day.
Yeah, well, but you and I. Okay, see now
I'm not interested in being on the treadmill every day. What I am interested in is when I can sit down and I can be the person that they call on. All of your top leaders, education. Why not teach leadership on the education level, on the MBA level?
That's right. Here's what I think she's saying. In the minute or so we have left with Marjorie Perry, who is the president and CEO of MZM Construction and Management. Marge, say someone says, okay, well, I get everything that Marge Perry is saying, but as Dr. Daniel Goleman calls it, emotional intelligence, the maturity, the wisdom, the security. Marge can teach, right? She could do it now if she wanted to. Mm-hmm. I think what is being said, Marge, if I'm wrong, you'll tell me, that great leaders are constantly asking themselves, him or herself, where can I have the greatest impact? And how can I also have the best quality of life myself? And it's the delicate balancing act between being happy, sounds corny, right? Being fulfilled, but also being of service to others. And by the way, paying our bills in the process. Is that basically it?
Yes, but and hear what you said, balancing the life. Because at the end of the day, every great leader has put in millions of hours to get whatever they're doing up and running.
Right.
Okay, there's no quality of life. So in order to even stay relevant as a leader, you're going to have to make some kind of shift. And what would that shift look like per person? Now, if I can do what Warren Buffett does, get up and read the newspaper, 20 of those a day and make $1 billion, I could do that till I'm 90 as well.
Right.
But guess what? He's not doing that heavy lift all day. The same 20 people are in his office all day long.
That's so
and
interesting.
And he does guest speaking all over the place because he loves to be an avid reader.
How'd you get this smart, Marge Perry?
Hey, I learned everything from you, Steve. Come on now. Everything from you.
You teed that up.
But that's it. Or Oprah Winfrey. Hey, listen, I'm 25 years of getting up and being at the studio. Now let me go buy a station and stay even more super relevant.
You know what?
Yeah, it's reinventing yourself, really, and finding
it's always you have to, because the newness of what you started gets old. So you have to reinvent yourself in order to stay relevant and continue to go.
Well, the irony is but you know what's so interesting about that? That's what this podcast is. Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. Mary and I were sitting around.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this as well.
Thank you. You've helped
Marge,
us.
we sat around and said, who are the best leaders we know? And Marge was one of those folks at the top of the list. But so interesting is we started this conversation a couple of years ago. Brian's in the studio right now with us, Brian Brodeur. And we were like, we want to do a podcast on leadership. Well, I wrote the book on leadership. Okay, well, what do you mean? Well, my wife sometimes says to me, why does it always have to be a new thing? I said, well, because I don't want it to be the old thing.
That's right.
That's it. Because I told Mary, I'll say this to you, Marge. We're thinking of changing the names of one of our shows. Should I say this on the air?
Yeah, you could say it on the air.
We were going to talk to Marge off the air on this, but one of our shows, Caucus, New Jersey, we've been doing for 30 years. We're thinking of changing the name. We are changing the name to Think Tank. And actually not just changing the name, but the branding and also the way the show's set up, the way it looks, the kinds of people we bring in. But I'm not saying I was bored with Caucus, but I was doing it too much the same way for too long.
Right.
And that's not innovation.
That's not innovation. And there's going to be a disruptor that comes along and eventually push you out the box anyway.
Exactly.
What?
So that's
Marge,
why
why do you have to keep bringing it back to that?
I'm sorry.
I love everything you say until you say stuff like that.
It's a fact. If you do something
It's
for
true.
30 years and you don't innovate on it at all, then a disruptor is going to come along and then you fade into the woodwork no matter what.
Innovate or die.
Ooh,
Innovate or die. That's it.
it's your next book.
It's true. Innovate or die. Hey, Marge, listen.
Yes.
Mary and I thought we would have a great conversation about leadership and entrepreneurism and life with you, but we never thought it would be even as compelling and interesting and provocative as it's been. Hey, Marge, we thank you so much for being a friend, a colleague, a trustee of ours.
Always my honor. Always my honor and pleasure.
Just take care of yourself, Marge.
I will. Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you, Marge.
Bye-bye.
Talk
Happy New
soon.
Year.
Same here.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow.
Fascinating.
What do you got?
I was just very, I always get excited having different, and it's great, leaders. And again, we say, what do we mean by leader? From all different walks of life and different backgrounds and doing different types of jobs every single day. And
Marge does construction management, developing projects. She actually knows how to build a building. I can't build a dollhouse. I mean,
Exactly.
I can't build anything.
And it's amazing to hear that even though these leaders are so different that we communicate with, they all share such unique perspectives, but there's so much that ties them all together in terms of, as we've said over and over and over again, relationship building, coaching, mentoring. So there's common themes. Innovating. And innovation is something that is just fascinating because
Why do people think, sorry for interrupting, not everyone, many people think innovation means just technology.
It's confusing. And a lot of people that we've spoken with over the past few months on the topic of innovation.
Because we're doing a series called Innovation New Jersey for our public broadcasting company. Go ahead.
Yeah, and a lot of those same people that really want us to do this programming because it's smart and the right thing to do have said to us, you need to start the program by explaining what is meant by innovation, defining it, because it does mean different things depending upon whether you're talking innovation in healthcare, innovation in media, innovation in banking, whatever you fill in the blank with. It's really about just innovation is recreating, bringing a new, whether it's a logo, a new show.
We did a series on voice technology at NJIT.
Right.
Brian, we were doing that. What's Alexa, right? It was sponsored by Amazon Alexa?
Amazon, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it's just the whole idea that voice technology will have a greater impact on our lives. Innovation. Oh, yeah, you won't be driving your car. The car is going to be driving it. Is that it? But that's not, it's not. Why are you making a face when I say that?
I think innovation, really, because I've been trying to embrace it myself and really figure out what we've meant this whole time. And I think it's just a new word for change. And I think that change was kind of scary for a lot of people. If you hear the word change in healthcare, changes in this, changes in that.
Changes in your eating habits.
Exactly. It's scary. It seems permanent. It seems, I feel that we as a society, really, because you hear it everywhere now, it's such a buzzword, innovation. And I think that it feels new. It feels something exciting and something, wow, I could wrap my head around it. Whereas change, really over the past, couple of decades, has a little bit of a negative kind because it is scary.
You're going to have to change the way you interact in your marriage. You're going to have to change the way you raise your children. You're going to have to change your whatever because your heart. Oh my God, really?
Yeah. Yeah, but if you say innovation, it just seems new.
You think it's semantics?
I think it is semantics, but I think in a good way. This is one of there's oftentimes all those different buzzwords and things that kind of stick.
We don't like buzzwords and jargon. We don't.
But this one, it could become jargony and it could become where you don't even hear it because it is all over the place right now. But I think defining it and understanding that really it's just about bringing about a better future, regardless of the venue. So I think it's cool.
Steve Adubato here, Mary Gamba. This is the Leadership Hour here with Brian and the team. Let's pick up one more thing that Marge was saying. So interesting. Marge was saying that great leadership sometimes means realizing that you have the opportunity to have the greatest impact by playing a different role in an organization you either are part of or affiliated with or created from the start. She created her thing from the start. I happen to do what we do with a lot of other people from the start, and someone much bigger, and I would never put myself in the same category as Oprah Winfrey. Oprah's Oprah. In fact, the irony is our good friend, it's so interesting how things are connected. Dr. Bill Baker, who is the former president and CEO of WNET, Channel 13, one of our partners, right, in New York, PBS station. When Bill was the former head of Group W Broadcasting down in Baltimore. And Bill told me this in a recent interview we did. Bill discovered Oprah. She was a newscaster there, and there's a point to this. She was a newscaster, and she was reading the news. And he kept seeing this big personality. And he told her, you don't really belong reading the news. You need to have a talk show. And the talk show started in Baltimore, locally. And it was Bill Baker who did that. And the reason I'm saying that is when I often talk to Bill about this, he said part of his job over time became identifying and developing talent, translation. It's almost like you want to do what you do gracefully. Like, so you remember the treadmill discussion she had?
Yeah.
Like, do I want to be, does any leader want to be on the treadmill till they're God knows what age, and then all of a sudden they fall off the treadmill and then it's over? No. Easier said than done. You have to find I think great leadership, the point of this long-winded diatribe and monologue, is to find a way to have the greatest impact. And I want to say in the least amount of time. That's too easy to say it. But it often means redefining your role.
Yes.
And Oprah did that.
Yes.
She got off. She was at the top of her game as doing the talk show. And I think she was, I can't speak for her, it looked like she was bored.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, how could you be bored? You got millions of making gazillion. No, I want to have my own network and I want to develop other people. Much harder, by the way.
And some of it's going to work.
And some of it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
And which is the risk in innovation, no?
It is. It is. And, going back to what Marjorie was saying in terms of, the treadmill, what
do we mean by the treadmill?
Well, we're human beings. And I think when we are younger, when we're in our 20s and 30s and 40s, you have a lot more energy. You have you have a tremendous amount of endurance. You have that passion, that drive. But when you get in your 60s, 70s, there are people that continue to work those 40, 50, 60-hour work weeks. And for certain people, I guess that's what drives them. But for many of us, and you and I have talked about this all the time, is that work-life balance and figuring out, I want that time for me now. Why have I been doing all this?
But okay, this is crazy to me, what you're saying. Because by Steve Adubato, Mary Gamby here talking about this is the leadership hour. This is interesting to me. So if I send that email to you at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm going to say me, I mean any leader.
Yeah.
If I'm fascinated by an article I came across and I want to send that to you at 5:30 in the morning.
Yep.
Am I on the treadmill or am I enjoying the fact that I came across a really good article I want to share with you?
Yeah, that's
what the
part
heck
of
is
your
the
DNA.
treadmill?
No, that's part of your DNA. What would be the treadmill if you said, oh, I have a company and, just for argument's sake, I have a $10 million company and I want to keep it at that $10 million level. And if that means I need to, work an 80-hour work week, I'm going to do everything in my power. Or you're going to look at it and say, all right, I'm into my 70s. I kind of want to slow down a little bit. I don't need to have a $10 million operation. I'm going to strategically take this in a new direction that maybe it's now going to be an $8 million operation. I'm going to start to delegate.
Haven't you lost something?
Well, if you see it that way, sure. But then
What's
it
a
goes
healthier
back.
way of looking at it?
It's a matter of defining what is success for you as a leader. Going back to leadership, is success that I have created a legacy, that I have created something that I'm going to leave behind, or is success that I want to make sure that I've made an impact in this world and left it better. And if that's as a wife, if that's as a CEO, if that's as a manager,
or a volunteer in a
doesn't
local
matter.
whatever.
You need to figure out what that it is that gets you up out of bed every day. That's just in my opinion. Money's great. You need money. It's a motivator and it gets things done. But at the end of the day, and you look back on your life, in those last final moments, that's how I try to.
So it's funny. So leaders who define themselves as this is how much money I've made, flawed approach?
No, I think for certain people, if that's how they define success for themselves, as long as they they have that goal and they're satisfied when they get there. The danger comes when they're never satisfied. And that's what Marge had brought up. Like, there are certain people that are never satisfied and things are never good enough. And
Yeah, where's the fun?
it's sad. It's sad. And I'm confident that some of those people unfortunately can't change and they're just going to, continue to live their life like that. But hopefully people listening today will take a pause, take a deep breath, and, really ask yourself, why do I do what I do every day?
So got a minute left, Mary Gamba. This has been the Leadership Hour. I'm going to give you one more chance to let everyone know who wants to follow up on this discussion on AM 970 or on the podcast. I shouldn't say I. Together with Mary, I've been writing articles. They have my byline, but trust me, her hand is on more of those articles than you can imagine, on every conceivable aspect of leadership, communication, innovation, entrepreneurism, relationship building. It's all there on our website. Let folks know. And we don't charge.
Yeah, they're all free, and it's a great resource. So stand-deliver.com is our website, and you can just hop right on there and put in the search engine the particular leadership topic you're looking into. And also you can follow Steve on Facebook, Steve Adubato, PhD, and that's Adubato, as well as on Twitter, Steve Adubato. So just to see all the great things that we're up to. And then if you like what you hear on the radio, you could subscribe to our podcast on Apple iTunes and Google Play.
By the way, check out the Leadership Hour, the second half hour of the Leadership Hour. I should have been saying this on every show, but it is State of Affairs. State of Affairs, which we broadcast out of the NJTV studio in Newark, one of our great partners, the PBS station in New Jersey, where we interview leaders of all stripes who happen to disproportionately work in government or the not-for-profit sector. That's State of Affairs. That's the Leadership Hour. This is Steve Adubato. That's Mary Gamba. This is Brian Brodeur, and we've had a great time bringing the Leadership Hour to you. Stay with us for the second half hour. Catch you next week.
This is Mary Gamba. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with State of Affairs with Steve Adubato, where we look at the most pressing issues facing the state of New Jersey.
This edition of the Steve Adubato Leadership Hour has been made possible by New Jersey Resources.
Hi, I'm Brian Granulotti, President and CEO of the Atlantic Health System. At Atlantic Health, we believe in helping our communities stay informed about the healthcare issues that affect them every day. That's why we're proud to support healthcare programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Atlantic Health System, building healthier communities, NJM Insurance Group, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, founded by the Jewish community, NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, New Jersey Resources, and by Summit Medical Group, a multi-specialty medical practice providing comprehensive care from birth and pediatrics to geriatric care, concentrating in general wellness, cancer treatment, disease management, and behavioral health. Promotional support provided by AM 970 The Answer and by NJ Advance Media.
Welcome to State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. We're coming to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio in Newark, New Jersey. Once again, we're joined by our friend Patricia Teffenhart, who is Executive Director of the New Jersey Coalition Against Sexual Assault. Good to see you, Pat.
Nice to have you. Oh my gosh.
No, it's great to have you.
Well, thank you.
And while you're doing that, you tell folks what the organization is. We'll put up your website right away.
Yeah, we're the New Jersey Coalition Against Sexual Assault. We've been around since 1981. And we represent New Jersey's 21 county-based rape crisis centers and the Rutgers University Office of Violence Prevention and Victim Assistance. And we are really busy right now.
You know, I've asked you this before. I'm going to ask you in a different way.
Yeah.
Are there more sexual assaults taking place? Or is there a whole societal, environmental thing going on where just there's more reporting of what has been happening all along?
Definitely more reporting of what's been happening. You know, as I mentioned, we've been around since 1981. And I would argue that my predecessors were clamoring for opportunities to have interviews like this, or to have bills representing survivors in the legislature.
Sure.
And now people are actually really paying attention.
For real? Versus, hey, this is what we're doing right now. bit of a fad, which it's anything but that?
That is an excellent question.
I don't have the answers. I just have the questions. But seriously, do you see this potentially a year from now? Hey, didn't we already do that thing?
So I would think if you had asked me this question a year ago at the beginning of the Me Too movement, I might have been very skeptical. I quite honestly remain moderately skeptical. This is a really hot topic for people to make their name on right now, right? To write a good article on it, to introduce a good bill, to say they're on the right side of the issue is a lot easier than to actually be on the right side of the issue.
Find the difference.
So talking the talk means, we're going to introduce a whole bunch of conversations about policy reform. Walking the walk means actually engaging subject matter experts and then introducing the policies and moving them through the State House. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to walk the walk, but right now, currently, there's a lot of talking going on.
This is Patricia Teffenhart, who is Executive Director of New Jersey Coalition Against Sexual Assault. Steve Adubato here. This is State of Affairs. I'm curious about this. Those of us in the media who've been very focused on this, many, put it this way, too many of our colleagues in the media have not just been accused, but have acknowledged their behavior in this regard, which is just deplorable and unacceptable and disgusting. What role do we have?
I think everybody has a role to play, and it's
Different for the media.
Yes, only because, again, going back to walking the walk and talking the talk are two very important things. Holding each other accountable, as I think is being done in ways that are more significant than before. Allowing zero-tolerance policies to really reign supreme in the workplace. And that's not just for individuals in media, that's for all workplaces.
Sure.
Right? If we say we want to create a more just and equitable work environment, then we actually have to follow through when disclosures come forward and hold those people accountable. And that means we also have to do the right, thorough investigations to get to the bottom of the truth.
You know what's interesting, Patricia? There are some friends of mine. There's a president of the United States who, no disrespect, but is not a friend of mine. I don't mean that in a negative way. Very concerned about false accusations against men. My God, you make the accusation, that person's career is over. How can we've got to get the pendulum back.
Yeah.
You say?
Oh my gosh, we hear that all the time.
So do I.
Individuals that don't have anything to be fearful of are not actually fearful. And I would argue that the stats actually operate in the other direction. For every 1,000, this is actual statistics from the Federal Department of Justice. For every 1,000 sexual assaults, 332 of them will be reported to police. 6 of them will land in a conviction.
What?
Yeah.
So therefore, the vast majority of accusations do not end in anyone being convicted.
Yep, exactly.
So this whole thing about, oh my God, you accuse someone, their career is over, that's it.
Right.
The facts don't back it up. The stats don't back it up.
Absolutely not. And when we look at what does that mean, right? So a lot of times, and particularly as we speak about employment law, for example, employers will say, well, we did a background check.
Right.
Well, what does a background check show if people aren't actually being convicted of these crimes? It shows nothing. The governor affirmed that in the spring of this year. He signed a bill into law that recognized that people working in our schools were going through hiring loopholes. They weren't being held accountable because they weren't being convicted of these crimes, and background checks weren't showing their true behaviors. So it's not just school teachers and people working in schools, it's everyone.
It's also the Catholic Church. Now, I'm going to try this again. We're going to try to get it right. We're going to talk about the Catholic Church, the sexual abuse cases that have been going on for a really long time. The statute of limitations there and in other places is 2 years.
Yes.
We're going to repeat something. We've been asking and will continue to ask the Archbishop, the Cardinal Tobin here in Newark, once again to come in. His office says that he wants to come in. I've lost count of the number of times we've asked. We will ask again, correct, Jackie? And we'll hopefully get him here.
Yeah.
Now, he's not the only one to talk about this, but he's the most significant figure in the Catholic Church. Why is that relevant as it relates to the statute of limitations for sexual assault?
It's everything right now. And in fact, this is the perfect conversation at the perfect time. I was invited to meet with the Cardinal back at the beginning of September, right as the Attorney General was launching.
And how did that meeting go?
It was a lot of good talking, and there has been zero action on their part since we met. In fact, we've launched a statewide petition that has over 375 signatures as I walked in here today of individuals that are looking to expand the civil statute of limitations, not just for those who have been harmed by the Catholic Church, but really a 2-year civil statute of limitations for sexual assault, and we have a 6-year civil statute of limitations for trespassing.
Hold on, 6 years for trespassing?
Yes.
2 years for sexual assault?
And sexual assault is recognized as the second most violent crime, second
Other than
only to
murder.
murder. Yes.
2 years.
Yes.
What should it be?
Ideally, we would abolish the civil statute of limitations. It would be the most trauma-informed response to a crime this horrific. It would mirror what we have for criminal statute of limitations in New Jersey. It's not my understanding the legislature has the appetite for that, but...
The appetite?
Yeah.
What do they have an appetite for? 8 years, 10 years? What
I
is
think
it?
it'd be really interesting to take a look at how much money the Catholic Church has spent lobbying the legislature over the last decade and how much money they've invested in actually stopping good policy from moving forward.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Adubato. This is State of Affairs. We'll be right back.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Welcome back, our good friend Jim McGreevey, former governor of the great state of New Jersey and chairman of New Jersey Reentry Corporation. Good to see you, Jim.
It's good to be here. Thank you, Stephen.
Jim, a report you and your team just put out, New Jersey Opioid Addiction Report, a modern plague. Describe what is it and why does it matter so much?
Stephen, the advent of synthetic opioids, fentanyl and carfentanil, has been a profound game changer. Fentanyl is 50 times, carfentanil is 100 times stronger than morphine. It's a synthetic opioid.
Sorry, Jim. Fentanyl, I know. What's the other one?
Carfentanil, which is even a stronger version of fentanyl. It's what they use in Africa to take down a full-grown African bull elephant in 20 minutes. And this synthetic opioid is so powerful, the DEA no longer uses the dogs. Agents now wear bodysuits because the fact that 3 grains of sand, the equivalent of that fentanyl, a client can survive, but 4 grains, you suffer overdose and death. And now the naltrexone, which we use to bring back people temporarily, you need 4 administrations. Wow. So this is so powerful. I mean, I just did, last week, we just did toxicology reports at our 9 reentry sites. And there's no more heroin in the heroin anymore, in the sense that people are consuming the synthetic opioid mixed with whatever derivative. And so that this is so powerful, so corrosive, that it's destroying lives faster and more permanently than anything we've ever seen.
Jim, but your organization, dealing with reentry, those who have been incarcerated coming back into society, what is the connection between the opioid crisis and the incarcerated population?
So there are 2 points. One, that people coming out of prison or out of jail are 130 times more likely to die because they're coming out and all of a sudden they're going to go back to the same usage, the same amount, and they take it, they overdose, and they die. The second point, in the state of New Jersey, we have one of the highest conflations. If you're in prison in the state of New Jersey, there's an 80% chance you're an addict or alcoholic. And if you're an addict or alcoholic, there's a high probability that you're going to wind your way into the criminal justice system or death. There's a high conflation between addiction and imprisonment in the state of New Jersey. And what we saw in this report, Stephen, is that thanks to the leadership of Senator Vitale and Governor Christie. Senator Joe Vitale.
Chairman of the Senate Health Committee, go ahead.
Yeah, and Governor Christie on a bipartisan basis said, all right, we need to provide for treatment.
Why would you be talking about the previous governor in this?
Because I think the governor did a phenomenal job in sort of grappling with the addiction crisis and at least bringing everybody to the table. But what we did is we required, in the state of New Jersey, 28 days of residential treatment and up to 3 months of intensive outpatient. But fentanyl is so powerful. Dr. Gasperin of Harvard said it takes 14 months. After one administration, it takes 14 months for your brain to go back to where it was before that administration, that there's such significant neural damage to the mind. And so that 28 days is not going to solve it. So we've been working with Blue Cross Blue Shield and Suzanne Kuznis, Horizon, and who's been like...
Suzanne is a policy person?
Yeah, I think she's like one of the 10 smartest people in the state of New Jersey. But, you know, to realize what was happening is young men and women were going into treatment for 28 days, coming out, using again, relapsing, going into treatment 28 days, coming out, using again. And it was happening 6, 7, 8 times. And then, Stephen, they die.
What works, Jim?
Well, we looked at the best practices in Rhode Island and Massachusetts and Texas, and what they say, it has to be a year model. It doesn't mean that the person's going away for a year. They can be in an Oxford house. They can be in a residential program, but they have to see the same doctor. They have to see the same psychiatrist. And so, you know, what's happening in New Jersey is Jim can go into Integrity House, and then I come out and I can go to Ava's Village, and then I can come out and I can go to another facility. But my records aren't following me. You know, take for example, if you were a cancer patient and you had surgery, they would follow you. The records would follow.
Why would it be different with someone who's suffering from opioid addiction, heroin addiction?
I think, Stephen, candidly, it goes back to the fact that before President Bush and Senator Kennedy provided for parity between behavioral health and medical health, I mean, candidly, our behavioral health system was fragmented, and we're suffering.
We didn't care that much, Jim, did we?
No, we didn't. And I can make an argument.
We
didn't care when black and brown people were suffering in the middle of a cocaine epidemic, but
where are we now?
What?
Where are we now? I mean, you talked about Governor Christie. You served as governor. You talked about Senator Vitale. Where do you see the Governor Murphy administration on this issue in terms of addressing the issues you're raising right now in this report?
Well, you know, Carol Johnson,
one of the commissioners
of Human Services, Dr. Sharif of Department of Health, Commissioner of Health. I believe they want to get this done, and with the leadership of Joe Vitale, I believe we're going to move from a 28-day model to a year model, so that.
What would it take to do that? Is it legislation?
It's legislation. It's legislation.
Has the governor made a statement on this?
The governor's responded to the report. The attorney general's responded to the report positively.
Did they acknowledge that they're committed to a year-long process?
I think.
And the economics involved in that?
Well, it's not actually Blue Cross Blue Shield.
It's not economics?
No. At Blue Cross Blue Shield, Horizon will actually argue it's less expensive because what's happening.
How can it be less expensive if you're in for longer and treatment costs more?
Because what happens is, Stephen, is that if you're in there for a short time up front, and you have all the clinical, the medical, the psychiatric, and then you have a step-down model, and then you have a further step-down, you're back into the community, and you're working it, and you're productive. The point is like a family. We're following you from the beginning to the end.
It's not the back and forth?
No, it's not. It's not the in and out, in and out. And so what happens is you're going to have medication-assisted treatment, and this is a big part of it. Like I'm an old AA, NA guy, but this is so powerful, the fentanyl, that you need Suboxone, you need naltrexone in order to wean the person off.
We need a different approach.
You need a different approach, but you have to lock down that person. You have to be all over that person from beginning to end for that year, and that's with the doctor, the behavioral psychologist, and the psychiatrist.
Before I let you go, increasing access to the drugs you're talking about, to the treatment you're talking about, biggest obstacle in the way of that? I've asked you this before.
It hasn't happened. It's frustrating because, part of it is medicating. Carol Johnson, I think she's making great strides. I've said, for my guys coming out of prison, they're dying. I have in my phone 3 photographs of men that have died this past week. I mean, this isn't cutting the Parkway law.
In connection with the opioid crisis?
Yeah, in connection with the opioid crisis. They come out of prison and they're using again, and then they overdose. And so my point is, when people like Suzanne Kuzna says, we can do this better, we can do this less expensively, but we have to connect these systems. In Vermont, it's called a hub and spoke. You come and get your MAT, we'll connect you to medication-assisted treatment. You'll get your Suboxone, you'll get your naltrexone, and then we'll connect you to housing, we'll connect you to benefits, will connect you to job placement.
So Vermont's doing it well.
Vermont's doing well.
It's
Massachusetts,
not like it can't be done.
Texas,
Other
it can
state,
be done.
Texas.
Yeah.
It can be done.
And we're going to have 3,000 people. I went to a funeral about 8 months ago with a family that lost their second child.
To this?
To this. And this is, Stephen, this was the most buttoned up, old-fashioned Catholic family, did everything right. It's their kids with their knucklehead friends. I mean, the same way you and I at some point would have done Jägermeister or whatever stupid thing.
Something stupid.
This stuff, you don't come back from.
Jim McGreevey.
So we need to get this done. Thank you, Stephen.
No. Every time you join us, not just do we learn something new, we're challenged. And I hope the folks in the State House, where you know better than most, respond. Not just Senator Vitale, but others.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, my friend.
You got it.
Godspeed.
Take care of yourself. Same to
Thank
you.
you.
Be right back right after this.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
This is Steve Adubato. We are in Atlantic City. This is the 165th New Jersey Education Association Convention. We're once again talking to the Executive Director of the NJEA, Ed Richardson. Good to see you, Ed.
Good to see you too. Thanks for being here, Steve.
Every year we've come here, there's energy, there's excitement. What makes this year particularly special?
I think just the fact that our educators feel a new mood in the state, really from the top, from the leadership of Governor Murphy. Our Education Commissioner, Lamont Repillette, is here.
We just talked to him. That's a big deal to have the Education Commissioner here.
It is. The Commissioner has always come and done a session, and Dr. Repillette will be doing that, but the Commissioner came here last night, had dinner with us, spoke to our staff and our leaders. We'll be doing that session, but he's here all morning. Walking around, talking with you, talking with educators, and that's what he wants to do. And that's a really important signal, I think, to send to our members, that the Commissioner of Education, someone who came up through the ranks as a practitioner, as a teacher, a principal, a superintendent, wants to be here among them and hear from them.
The other thing that is, I don't know if it's different, Ed, but the conversation that's so critical. You and I talk a lot about the state of quote-unquote political discourse in our state, in our nation. Your organization put out a very public statement about the tone of public discourse, its connection to violence, and the role of educators in that regard. How important is improving and making more civil, if you will, our political discourse?
It's so vitally important from a policy standpoint. We have challenges that we face in New Jersey, across the nation. We will never be able to address those challenges unless we learn how to talk to each other in a cooperative and respectful way. There will always be issues of disagreement, whether it's across party lines.
When we disagree, are we enemies?
No, we don't have to be.
But what's the role of education and educators in all this?
That's the really difficult thing. Our members are out there teaching our students about how to have respectful discourse, about how to discuss ideas and debate them, even when we disagree, and still be able to, come out as friends, and at least as peers,
respecting each other's point of view.
Respect each other,
even if we disagree.
Even if we disagree.
That's the role of an educator.
I think so. Yeah, parents, of course, as well, families, but so there we are trying to teach our kids those values. And yet
what do we
what
see
they
in adults?
see from the adults who are leading our nation is a way different kind of a dynamic. And so that is the difficulty for our members here. How do we navigate that difference?
I talked to Marie Bliston, your president, about this, talked to the Commissioner of Education about it. I want to ask you. School safety. We talked about I know where the organization is when it comes to putting guns in the hands of teachers, even well-trained, against it.
Against it.
Can we talk school bus safety? The horrific accident that happened, with so many children at risk, victims, if you will. What are we doing there?
So we were among the very first organizations 20 plus years ago to call for seatbelts in school buses. And the state ultimately adopted a statute. New Jersey was one of the first to require them. We're now talking about 3-point safety belts in school buses.
Explain to folks what that means.
Basically, right now, the belts that are required are the lap belts, which anybody who's been around as long as I have remembers that was the standard in passenger vehicles.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. You get in a car now, and it's natural. You have a 3-point seatbelt coming across. Why shouldn't our children have that in a school bus? So that is one of the policies.
What's standing in the way of that?
It's expensive, obviously, but you can't put a price on the safety of our students. The tragedy that you referenced not only affected children and their families, but we did lose one of our members in that accident, and so everybody is affected here, and so I think we owe it to our children, our families, our educators to provide the very best safety equipment we can on the buses. Now, I have to say that the backdrop of all this is, from a passenger vehicle mile standpoint, There is no safer vehicle on the road than a school bus. So it's not that we have a horrible track record, but one tragedy is one too many, and we have to figure out how to.
And to Ed's point, before we get off this, when we bring our daughter to the school bus in our hometown, and she gets on that bus, it does cross my mind, and I know I speak for many, many parents watching and listening right now, you can't be safe enough.
Right, right. The other element of that also is, who's driving that bus? We have high standards in terms of, commercial driver licenses and other training programs. We believe that the other element of that is having a district employed driver in that bus, somebody who knows the community, somebody who likely knows some of those very parents and their children, develops relationships over a period of years. That's important too.
One more quick one. I know you were with us on State of Affairs, and we touched on it. I'm going to go a little deeper in the time we have left. We had the President of the State Senate, Steve Sweeney, talking about his plan to gain, as he believes, more fiscal responsibility in the state. And he did bring up, and you know this, going back and revisiting the question of public employee pensions, health benefits. You say?
We've come to the table. We've had extensive conversations with the administration and developed a host of cost-saving solutions that are right now being implemented. So not to get into the weeds on this, but a new plan for education retirees that will save the state $180 million a year. We went to the table a few years ago with the senator's help, because we needed legislation for this, to change the manner in which the state bids its prescription program. That resulted in a $1.5 billion savings over 3 years, and we're about to go back and rebid it to try and reap even more cost savings, probably in the neighborhood of 100 to 150 million a year. There are things that can be done to improve the way insurance is procured and delivered, and the way healthcare is delivered, to reap huge savings without automatically diminishing the level of benefits that people pay. The other issue that we have is, as a result of a law passed in 2011, we have members all over this state, educators, who are taking home less net pay from one year to the next. And the reason for that is the law required certain levels of healthcare premium sharing, and they are now exceeding any raises that people are getting. So, you get a small raise over here, but your healthcare premium goes up by this much. We've got to end that. We cannot continue to have negative net pay year over year over year. One legislator we spoke with about this said, going and doing the same or better work each year for less pay is crazy. I don't want crazy people teaching our children. And so we have to fix that.
Ed Richardson is the Executive Director of the New Jersey Education Association. We're here at the 165th NJA Convention in Atlantic City. Ed, thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
Appreciate it.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Atlantic Health System, MZM Insurance Group, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, NJIT, New Jersey Resources, and by Summit Medical Group.
I think at NJIT there are a lot of smart students.
I came to NJIT for mechanical engineering because within state it's one of probably the top 3 schools for engineering.
It sort of creates a friendly competition where you can learn from them.
It's a great academic school.
I feel I'm being challenged, but at the same time I love the classes I'm taking.
The atmosphere of being here is like being at an upstart company. It's that same kind of drive, that same kind of passion.
I could feel my lungs fill with oxygen, and I got my life back.
The Sharing Network means to me hope, life, and everything.
The Sharing Network was a lifeline to me when I really needed it.
We are an organ procurement organization.
The core purpose of the New Jersey Sharing Network is to save and enhance lives.
To honor those who gave.
Pay tribute to those who received.
Offer hope to those who continue to wait.
And remember the lives lost while waiting.
For the gift of life.
This is Mary Gamba. If you want more leadership tips and tools, log on to stand-deliver.com. That's stand-deliver.com.
This edition of the Steve Adubato Leadership Hour has been made possible by New Jersey Resources.